Support for this episode of YXE Underground comes from Rob Romby and the team at RBC Dominion Securities in North Battleford. If you need someone to manage and invest your money, you need to meet Rob and his team at RBC Dominion Securities.
Is like they've become an extended part of my family, which I wasn't expecting, which really surprised me. But because of the people they are, they've just kind of made their way into my heart.
Hello, I'm Eric Anderson. The voice you just heard belongs to Nathalie Baudais. Nathalie, along with Valerie Veillard and Twyla Yobb, are the featured guests in Season 7, Episode 7 of YXE Underground. Many people around the world want to come to Canada for a better and more secure life. In the case of refugees, the process of coming to a city like Saskatoon is complicated and takes a lot of people pulling in the same direction. You are about to meet three women who for years have been sponsoring refugees to safely settle in Saskatoon and discover why this work means so much to them in this episode of YXE Underground. Welcome to Valerie Veillard's sitting room. There's tea and snacks on the coffee table in front of us, and she's flanked on her couch by Nathalie and Twyla. Between the three of them, they have decades of experience in sponsoring refugees, sometimes individuals, sometimes families, and then helping them settle here in Saskatoon. Valerie, Nathalie, and Twyla are part of a sponsorship group working with the Mennonite Central Committee to bring a refugee family from Afghanistan to our city. The Jamili family has been waiting for months to learn if they will begin a new life in Saskatoon, while Valerie and the team have been working behind the scenes to ensure they will get to Canada safely. That means filling out forms, fostering relationships with organizations like the Saskatoon Open Door Society, and fundraising. Lots and lots of fundraising. The group has already sponsored the settlement of 2 adult children from the Jamili family, and it is hoping to soon reunite the family here in Saskatoon. The world of refugee sponsorship is new to me, and I'm grateful to Valerie, Nathalie, and Twyla for walking me through the process of how it works and why they commit so much of their time and energy to helping others in this way.
I'm Nathalie Baudais, and I'm part of the sponsorship group.
Valerie Veillard, also part of the sponsorship group.
And I'm Twyla Yobb, also part of the sponsorship group.
Well, there's a few different ways to sponsor people. So the way we're looking at doing it this time, and that's what we used the past couple times, is through a sponsorship agreement holder. So we've partnered with the Mennonite Central Committee, and they get a certain number of refugee spots per year from the Government of Canada that assigns them to them. And then they can select private sponsorships. Do I have this correctly? I'm just okay. I'm doing okay so far. Okay, good. So they can assign through private sponsors those spots. So we don't know yet if we have spots for 2025 for the family, but we have to fundraise a certain amount of money to support the family financially for that first year and then resettle them when they arrive.
Okay.
If we get the spots.
Okay. So do you, as a group, then, do you reach out to the Mennonite organization to, say we would like some of the spots, or how does that work?
Yeah, we do use, that's exactly what we do. We have a choice of different ones. There are other ones in town, but we started out with the Mennonite Central Group as our sponsorship agreement holder. And so, we have to have a sponsorship agreement holder. That's who does all the sort of official legal work with the IRCC, the Immigrant and
Immigration and Refugee Canada.
Why don't we just say the federal government?
the government department that looks after refugees. Yeah.
Citizenship, I think. Immigration, Refugee, and Citizenship Canada.
Yeah.
I believe. IRCC.
There's lots of acronyms out there, aren't there?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's our connection with the IRRC is the MCC. And they make sure we follow all the rules and tell us what the rules are and give us some help at the beginning. Like, because we had already sponsored other groups, we weren't necessarily needing too much help from them in this sponsorship. But in the other sponsorships, we really did count on them to tell us what the rules were and keep us up to date around that kind of stuff, make sure we do it right so that we have a better chance of getting our refugees here.
What are the rules?
So the main role of the group here is to fundraise to make sure that we have enough money. There's a calculator that MCC uses to help us estimate what is the minimum amount that we would have to raise to bring in a certain number and style of family. And so we are tasked with doing the fundraising and making sure then that we submit an application at the correct time. And then once we are accepted, we go through all the process with the MCC. And then once the refugees arrive, we welcome them, we house them, we get them set up and teach them how to live in Canada for a year, the first year.
Okay, so thank you for explaining that, Twyla. But that's a lot. That's a lot on your plate as a sponsorship group. Thank you for the tea, by the way. That's a lot on your plate to do that. So in terms of like the fundraising, so you have to how much do you have to fundraise in order to bring over a refugee to Saskatoon?
So for one, I think the amount was in the range of 18 to 20.
18 to 22,000 for the 1 year. Yeah.
We're looking right now at a family of 5, and we're assuming that they're all going to live together and share costs and all of that, and we'd be looking at a minimum of, I think it was 50 to 70. Yeah.
Yeah, there's one thing with the minimum amount versus the actual cost of living, right? So we have to raise 80% of the minimum amount by December 31st, which we've already done, and then the 100% before the family arrives. But we think 70,000 is more appropriate for a family of 5 for a year. So we are trying to raise that amount.
So it's a family of 5 you want to bring over. In this case, how were you able to? Can you tell me the story a little bit in terms of how you were able to, why this family of 5? How were you able to get in touch? I don't know if in touch is the right word, but I guess form a bit of a relationship to the point where you want to bring them over to Saskatoon. How did that come to be?
Well, I joined a former sponsorship group who brought over a family member of this family. And so that was in 2022, I believe. Yeah, so she arrived in Saskatoon and I got involved with the sponsorship group. I just asked if they needed any help, volunteers. And by that point, she had already been settled. So I just became a bit of a tour guide for her, showing her around Saskatoon and the province. And then through her advocacy, she was really concerned about another family member, her brother, who had escaped Afghanistan by that point, but didn't have any legal status anywhere. So she was really worried about him being deported back to Afghanistan and advocated for a sponsorship of him. So we brought him over, and the family that we're looking to sponsor is the remaining family members who have now also escaped Afghanistan and are in a similar situation to the brother, where they have no legal standing where they are and are at risk of deportation.
When you hear stories like this, what goes through your mind?
Oh, it's so many things go through your mind because you know what the situation is in Afghanistan. I actually happened to travel in Afghanistan for a little while in 1975 when it was a completely different place. And so I'd already been following, what's going on there and being really disturbed by it and really worried about the people that were going to be trying to get out. So I knew that they would be trying to get out. And so what goes through your mind is, well, what if we can't get them there? What kind of danger are they in? Are they worse than other Afghanis in terms of the danger they're in? And they are, because they're in an ethnic group that the Taliban doesn't really approve of, or it's not the right one for them. and they also one of the religious sects. So they're very susceptible to being targeted by the Taliban. So what goes through my head a lot is that contrast between what it was in 1975 and what people are doing now, and it's just really hard to believe. Not that the fact that it used to be different makes any difference to them now, but it certainly goes through my head.
Twyla, what goes through your mind when you hear a story like this?
Well, I got involved in refugee sponsorship back in the 90s when I was on campus, and the sponsorship holder at that point was the World University Services of Canada. And, just with a group of like-minded people, and they were setting up the refugee sponsorship program at the university at that time, and you just sort of start to hear the stories, and you start to see the need, and, well, I'm in a position where I can help, and therefore I will. That's kind of how that goes. And I found it to be a very rewarding experience. So just having somebody come and knowing that you've been able to give them a better life in a better place is very, very rewarding for me. So when, I walked away from that after a while, after I left campus life and went out to build a career. But now that I'm getting near the end of my career, I thought, well, I should get back into that because it's such a place to be. It's such a welcoming place. Yeah. So that's how I kind of got connected to this group.
Yeah. Nathalie, what goes through your mind when you hear stories like that, and there's clearly a need to help, but like you're doing it, but what goes through your mind?
I think just when I look at the world as a whole and the amount of conflict and refugees, like people fleeing their homes because of a safety issue, I just put myself in those shoes, and what would I do and where would I go and how, it's just overwhelming what these people are going through. And if I can help one person or one family and make that difference, I will do it.
I'm curious, when as a group, with this example, trying to get the family of 5 over to Saskatoon, is it on your mind like all the time in terms of when can we get them here? How are they doing over there? And if so, is it hard? Do you have hard days? Thinking about what the family's going through over in Afghanistan or wherever they might be?
We've had particularly hard days because the government is cutting back on the number of refugees and all these things that will affect us and our ability to get them here. That really hit me, and now there's so many people out there that are saying stop bringing refugees and all that. So we're quite concerned about it. We're at a point now where we think if we get the short list that we're on right now with MCC, we'll be okay, because they're not going to take away ones that the IRCC has already put through, So I'm feeling a little less concerned now, but there was a time when I was feeling quite concerned that the whole thing was going to stop. And we have 2 of their family members here who are really interested in getting them into safety. So, it's really hard to see the brother and the sister that are already here, and to think of them worrying about their family. And we've never met them, but we have met the 2 that we sponsor, and we feel it through them.
Yeah, and I think the longer the time passes, the more my worry increases. If, like Val said, we're hopeful that in 2025 we may potentially get spots. We won't know until later in March. But if we don't get spots in 2025, will spots be allocated in 2026? Will we get them? And the family, as I mentioned, they have no legal standing. They can't work. They can't go to school. They're stuck in their apartment. And imagine how your mental state is impacted when you're stuck at home with very little liberty or freedom, and you don't know your future. They don't know if they can come to Canada and see their children, the other two children that are settled here. So yeah, my worry increases, not just for their safety, but for their mental health.
And as time goes by, those worries get worse because two of their children are quite young, like teenager and well, maybe early teens. They're not going to school. They've missed already quite a long time in school. And for children to miss out on school, you just can't help but feel anxious to get them here so that they can start catching up in school.
Yeah, and I mean, the longer that we can't help them where they are, the higher the risk of deportation, or that we'll lose contact with them, or that something will happen to the family irreversibly, So there's a sense of urgency to it for sure, yeah.
I appreciate your honesty and your answers. And as you were talking, it's sort of hitting me like you're able to do so much here, but then on the other hand, so much of this is out of your control. Is that hard? Yes.
yes, that's hard.
That's a fun word answer.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, yeah. It's very challenging. Yeah.
How do you overcome that challenge? I putting myself in your shoes. As someone who likes to I like to fix things. I like to work to find a solution to something. And you do all this work, but then at some point it is out of your control a bit. Is that how do you deal with that? And I guess you've been doing it for a while, so you must have ways of dealing with it. But I'm so curious. How do you do it?
Compassion, first of all, for yourself, and then for the other members of the group, for sure. And they're just a shared experience, I guess. We're a community, a small community, and we share the burden. So that's always a good. And then lots of self-care that involves touching base with each other. And I mean, we have to have compassion for Mark at MCC as well. He has the tough job of having to make all the choices of who comes and who. So just being in touch with those emotions, understanding and being able to express them and work through them. Yeah. Sometimes you can't help. Sometimes bad things happen.
The other thing that we do is concentrate on what we can do.
Yeah.
We can raise the funds. We can be ready for them. So that's the part that's imminent for us, is to get the funds raised and to be ready for them to come. And so that's what you do most if you're concentrating on, and it helps to keep you going.
Yeah, and of course we always try to be the keeners, so it looks good on the application. We get our application in as soon as it's open. We try to do all those things, check all the boxes, so that whenever there's a potential for a yes, we are getting a yes. And as Val mentioned, we focus on what we can, and I try to reach out to the family with WhatsApp, get them practicing their English, texting with them that way, just to make it easier for them when they do arrive, that they know a little bit about us and hopefully have a little bit of better understanding of their English language.
What are those conversations like with the family right now for you, Nathalie?
They're pretty one-sided right now, I would say, because they don't have a lot going on in their lives to share, and they're a little uncertain with their English. So I think at the beginning I was texting in English and I would get a response in Dari or Farsi, and I'd have to go to Google Translate. And then finally, the daughter who's here, she texted her sister. She said, "What are you doing? You have to respond in English." That's the whole point. So then I started getting answers in English, but it's very short responses because they're still just practicing. Yeah.
What is it like? This is so unique though in a way, because there are two family members here already that you have helped to bring here. Is it nice to have them here in order to make sure that connection with the family in Afghanistan is strong still? Is it nice to have that?
Well, before, it's not that we didn't have any involvement. When Kamila came with her, with this other family that ended up going to Calgary, we actually got to have a couple of Zoom type meetings with them. so we had seen them and we had talked to them a little bit, and some of them they had a little bit of English, and we got a little bit of a sense of it. But now through the two that we already have here, we've got we can really understand what they're thinking. If you talk to them about how their family are doing, they can tell you, although we don't like to cause them too much angst by asking them every detail of how they're doing. But yeah.
I guess it would be a balance, wouldn't it? Because you still want them, you want to give them their independence, but yet at the same time too, it's a nice resource to have.
Yeah, it is. And we do want the family practicing their English, so we don't want to rely solely on them as translators either, right? But yeah, no, it will help us for sure resettle the family to have the two kids here knowing what they're looking for, excuse me, and even knowing where the products are, right? Like when you come, where do I find this spice? Like they'll know, oh, I can go to this store and find what I'm looking for, right? Or this is the name for it here, right? So it'll be very helpful for us.
Extremely so. I can't imagine, like when we brought with the Syrians, they actually had some people that were already here. But when we had Kamila and the Roshans, we did not have any connection with them before. We didn't, they came without any support at all. So, except for what our group and MCC gives them, but they didn't have sort of some friends that had come here or some family. They've since met a few people who, not that they knew in Afghanistan, but who had some similar experiences and stuff like that. But at that time it was more difficult, and this time it's going to be much easier because they're going to be learning how to live in Saskatoon from somebody who learned how to live in Saskatoon a couple of years ago, but who lived with them in Afghanistan. So,
may I ask about fundraising?
Sure.
How much work do you invest in terms of the fundraising, and how do you go about, because this is a lot of money that you have to fundraise. It's like, yeah, it's a lot. How do you go about doing it?
Thinking about it constantly. You always try to get, this group has quite a bit of experience in the past. There's different ways you can fundraise. If there's family members here, they can contribute to the pot. If you have your sponsorship partner, like Mennonite Central Committee, they can issue charitable donations for donations. So that's one way that to encourage people to donate, and then it's taxable on their income tax. It is a taxable deduction. Thanks, Nathalie. So and then what did we have? Like we had a dinner night. We had a supper. We cooked a supper and fed people, and we've had lots of different silent auction, online auctions, and then just a lot of good connection with community. Of course, our own networks of people get asked a lot to give us a little bit here and there. So, and then we try to broaden our outreach through social media as much as we can. And Nathalie's a pro at making newsletters, so keeping people updated and trying to bring them in on. A little bit invested in the sponsorship, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. How do you get? I think there's so much power in storytelling when it comes to fundraising. Is it? Do you find that once you're able to share the story with someone, is it easier to sort of get them into the spirit of maybe fundraising or supporting what you're doing?
I think for sure telling the story, and we often involve Camilla and Ali in the storytelling, and so people can meet them and hear a little bit about their experience. And that definitely does help people see the value of where their money's going, and the impact. But I think, people have a lot of places they can put their money, so having them choose this as the place to donate is key and crucial, and that's what will get us to our 70,000. Yeah.
That's definitely the biggest thing, is to get personal donations. Like if people will donate in hundreds or even thousands of dollars, it's way different than doing a bottle drive, for example, which we've tried. And we actually have our friends collecting all their stuff and taking it to Sarcan and putting our name on it. And, it's $10 at a time or something is what comes in from that. It's not much, but we go from there all the way to finding our most wealthy friends and asking them for money.
Yeah. Do you find though too? I remember a couple years ago I did an episode about how, and I spoke to lots of different people and different organizations when there was an influx of refugees from Ukraine, and how Saskatoon was, so many parts of the community were working to welcome so many people from Ukraine, and it was an eye-opening experience for me because it just showed me how the spirit of a welcoming and hospitality and what can we do to help you is here in the city. Do you feel that spirit? And you've been doing this for a while now in terms of sponsoring families. Would you say there is that kind of community within Saskatoon in terms of welcoming refugees?
I would say, in general, the people on the ground for sure are a welcoming community, right? At the political level, we're looking at some changes. And then there's a possibility that it might become a little bit less welcoming through changes that might happen there. But I think the people locally are for sure welcoming, and they understand the need, and they understand how to give. Yeah.
Yeah, and because Twyla, you mentioned when your work on campus, in the 1990s. So you've been at this for a while. Have you seen? I guess from your perspective, what has it been like for you to see sort of the community sort of change and evolve? And because I just think of our city as so much more diverse than what it used to be. Even when I went to university on the U of S 20 years ago, I think Saskatoon is so much more diverse, and I think that's a wonderful thing. But have you seen that as well?
For sure. But the people who are coming here come from so many different backgrounds, and they understand hardship. There's, as we add more people who come from different backgrounds that have understood hardship from different areas of the world themselves, they understand and they support what they can, as they can.
I think that's such a good point, because it just reminds me, a couple months ago I did an episode with two EAL teachers here in the community, and one of the teachers, Laura Jorgensen, she was mentioning how when she's teaching her high school kids, there is community that is formed within her classroom, because so many of the students have shared experiences, and they can be, if they are refugee students, it can be very hard experiences, but there is that community that even forms within her classroom. But yeah, so that would make sense. I guess you see that on a bigger scale because we do have more refugees here.
We do, and it's amazing how much shared experience, as you say, can put people together. There's people who come here who have experienced trauma, pretty significant trauma, and the way that they can go through that is by developing community, and by helping others to get through trauma helps you heal your own. So, there's some really, I think our community as a whole is getting better at that. Yeah?
Do you see that community for me, Nathalie?
I think so. And I think just to touch on something that hasn't been covered already is we have a lot of really great organizations that help with creating that welcoming. We have Open Door Society, we have Global Gathering Place, International Women's of Saskatoon. There's just a lot of really great organizations that provide resources to newcomers in Saskatoon and can help us with settling refugees. I do find the response on the ground is a little bit different for Afghani refugees because it's an internal conflict in that country, whereas the Ukrainian refugees, it was a different scenario. So, in Saskatchewan, we did have big hoopla for the Ukrainians when they arrived. We were doing job fairs, we were doing all of this, and I haven't seen the same types of resources set up for refugees from other countries.
No, I appreciate you mentioning that, because you're right. There was a big effort once the Ukraine war happened, and we were receiving refugees. Yeah, and it hasn't been the same. Is that frustrating to you?
It's very frustrating for me when we're working really hard to get these families established with jobs and all these resources, and they're not getting the free backpacks for the kids, and they're not getting the here's an interview for this job, they're just not getting handed things as easily. We have to work harder to get them established. we can do that, but it's more effort. Yeah.
All three of you have been so generous in terms of explaining, how all of this works and the logistics behind it and the challenges that come with it. But I'm so curious, like why do you do this? And in some cases, why have you been doing it for years? What makes it meaningful for each of you? I don't know who wants to start. That's a big question again.
It's so rewarding. It's like bringing up children. Why do you bring up children? Why do you have children? They give you a lot of rewards. To see them well settled and happy and get jobs and that kind of thing. Like those things are really rewarding.
Yeah, I think for me, it was so funny because I joined the group thinking, I'll help these people settle and get established in their life. And just how much I've been involved with them is like they've become an extended part of my family, which I wasn't expecting, which really surprised me. But because of the people they are, they've just kind of made their way into my heart. And so it is very rewarding, as Val mentioned, and I'm hoping we can bring the rest of them.
I think for me, when I first did my sponsorships back in the 90s, and now those people are still part of my extended family. I've lost touch with some, but I know they're all thriving. So it's sort of like extended family. And I know that if they showed up on my doorstep anytime, I'd take them in. If I showed up on their doorstep anytime, I take them in. Some of them have moved to the other countries. Some of them are having children of their own. Some of them have gone back to the U of S and are now contributing again to that sponsorship program that brought them back. So there's such a drive in the people who we bring here to give back somehow. It's rewarding to me personally, and it's also, I think, very beneficial to the community. Yeah.
Thank you for all that. If someone is listening to this and wants to help, how can they go about doing that?
They could donate, would be the first thing. I don't have the website handy, but I can send you the email with the website. That would be the biggest thing right now is we're in the big fundraising push. So if people could donate, that'd be wonderful. And if they want to volunteer, we're happy to expand our sponsorship group with people to help us resettle this family when we get spots. Yeah.
We'll have to keep in good touch around this because the MCC is changing their website, so we're going to be having to give them the main page. So we'll have to keep you well informed about that, so you're not giving the wrong.
Yes, keep me in the loop.
Yeah.
Okay. This has been such a pleasure to meet you three. Like I said off the top, this is a world that I'm unfamiliar with, and I feel like I've learned so much, but I also feel lucky because it is clear that you three are just like incredible human beings with really big hearts, and the fact that you're telling me why this means so much to you, and I can see sort of your eyes welling up a little bit, like this means so much to you, and so I just want to thank you for sharing that passion with listeners today. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, Eric, for having us on the show.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Eric.
My thanks to Valerie Veillard, Nathalie Baudais, and Twyla Yobb for sharing their stories with me on the podcast. I've put a link in the show notes if you would like to donate to their efforts to bring the Jamili family to Saskatoon. This has been Season 7, Episode 7 of YXE Underground. My name is Eric Anderson. I host, produce, and edit this local independent podcast. You can listen to YXE Underground wherever you find your favorite podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Goodpods, or on yxeunderground.com. Please feel free to leave a 5-star review if you like what you hear. These positive reviews help the podcast show up in more podcast feeds, so I really do appreciate the support. You can follow the podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Simply search YXE Underground. I want to thank my cousin, Andrew Dixon, for the original theme music for the podcast, and a big thank you to Saskatoon's Danger Dynamite for developing and maintaining the website. I also want to let you know of an exciting event I am working on with the Remai Modern. Please circle April 17th on your calendar, as that's when YXE Underground will be presenting a movie at the Remai Modern's lovely theater beginning at 7 p.m. This is thanks to Kyle Zervensky, who runs the theater program at the Remai, and his generous spirit. We will be showing the short film Molly Schikosky and I made last summer celebrating the podcast, followed by the Pixar classic WALL-E, because it's just an amazing film, and I think it connects nicely to YXE Underground in very meaningful ways. The Remai does this with other community organizations who select a movie for the public to watch for free, and it's really cool to partner with the gallery in this way. And did I mention it's free to attend? So hopefully see you on the night of April 17th, starting at 7 o'clock. Before I go, I would like to acknowledge that this interview was gathered on Treaty 6 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis. YXE Underground is a production of the Salthammer Production Company. My name is Eric Anderson. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you soon, Saskatoon.